clap your hands. Free to dance and sing, free to lift my hands and worship. Lord, I'm free. Good evening, y'all. Come on, stand with us. Listen, we're free to dance and sing, free to lift our hands and worship. Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free. I'm free to dance.
Free to dance and sing.
Free.
Free to lift my hands and worship. Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free.
Say I'm free to dance.
Free to dance and sing.
Free.
Free to lift my hands and worship. Lord, I'm free.
Come on, clap.
Lord,
I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
Any free worshipers out
Free
there?
worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
Lord, I'm free.
Lord, I'm free.
I'm a free
I'm a free
worshiper.
worshiper.
I'm a free
I'm a free
worshiper.
worshiper.
I'm a free
I'm a
worshiper.
free worshiper. Lord, I'm free.
Free to dance.
Free to dance and sing. Free to lift my hands and worship. Lord, I'm free. Lord, I'm free.
Say I'm free to dance.
Free to dance and sing. Free
Free.
to lift my hands and worship.
Lord, I'm free. Any free worshipers out there? I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free
I'm a
worshiper.
free worshiper.
I'm a free
I'm a
worshiper.
free worshiper.
Lord, I'm free.
Lord, I'm free.
I'm a free worshiper. Anybody thank him today?
I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
Y'all pray for Vanessa. She was supposed to do this, but she got to go to the
Lord,
hospital.
I'm free.
You know what I can say? Thank God I'm free, and I never be bound again. That's why we're here this evening, to say this one thing. Thank God we're free, and we'll never be bound again. Help me say it. Tell him, thank God.
I thank God I'm free, and I'll never be bound again.
I know you're going through some things, but now you're going to learn to say, thank God.
Thank God I'm free,
And I never
and I'll never
wave bye-bye to your
be
past.
bound again.
Come on and help me say it. Tell him again. Thank God.
I thank God I'm free, and I'll never be bound again.
By the hurt of the past, all the things that held me back, but thank God. Thank God I'm free, and I never.
And I'll never be bound again.
You know why? I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free worshiper.
If you want to be free, come on.
I'm a free worshiper. I'm a free worshiper.
Lord, I'm free.
Lord, I'm free.
I'm a free worshiper. I'm free.
I'm a free worshiper.
I'm a free
I'm
worshiper.
a free worshiper.
Lord, I'm free.
Lord, I'm free.
You know why? Oh, 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 oh. Can I hear something? Lord, I'm free.
Lord, I'm
I came to learn. Oh, 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 Lord, somebody clap your hands. Come on. Come on. Oh, Lord, we can be free today. Oh, 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 now put it together. Oh, y'all can clap your hands. You can do your dance. You can do your dance. Come on. Show them how to do it, Charles. Do your dance. Do your dance. I might let break dance for y'all too. Come on. Somebody shout, oh, I'm free. Come on, one more time. Oh, say, oh. Let me hear y'all say, oh. Come on, Carl, say, oh, oh, oh. Lord. Say it again. Say, oh. Check the video out. Come on, give it up for the praise team.
Hallelujah.
Did y'all get that? Did y'all get that? Y'all looking like y'all didn't get that. Did y'all get that? Did y'all read all of that? Did y'all read it? I was moving too fast for y'all to read. That's what it was. Don't worry, I will remind you. We know we live in a world where we say money does equals what? Success. Don't we? But how many of us really know what true success is? Are you at a place where you feel free? We talk about free to worship. And it's hard to be free to worship when you're bound by everything. Bound by your struggles. Bound by debt. How many of us got bills? How many of you paid cash for your car? Car, you paid cash for your car? Oh, okay, you heard me put your hand down, okay? I was like, let me borrow about 100,000, okay? Say, I have it in Jesus' name. Let me tell you something. We have a special guest, and he's going to come up to us shortly. And you know, last week we started talking about biblical economics. And you can be in church all your life and really miss everything that God has in store for you. There are so many wonderful promises that are etched in the Word of God. But if you don't know the promise is there, how can you obtain it? The Bible tells us to move from the elementary things. You receive salvation. You confess Christ. You say, I want Lord and Savior to be my Lord and Savior. Lord, I repent of my sins. Lord, I surrender. I believe that you are the Son of the Almighty God. That's our foundation. But it comes a time when we must start growing with things that we can digest. We need to move from milk to meat. And even with Jesus, he wanted us to graduate. He came, he lived this earth, he walked this earth, that we may be successful. And I want to tell you, I've been in church all my life. And I think as I really look back at some of the things that I've seen and things I went through, we had a lot of people that really missed great opportunities. And you know why they missed them? The Bible said we perish for the lack of knowledge. We often, especially the millennials, you tell them something. Oh, I know. If you have a millennial child, 20, they know everything. You can tell them it's raining outside. I know, but they go outside with nothing to cover them because they really don't know. But we perish for the lack of knowledge. There's one thing Jesus said. He says, I came that you may have life. If you're in this room, you're alive. You walked in. You wasn't rolled in. He says, not only that you may have life. Now, this is the great part about it, that you may have life more, say with me, more. In the Spanish, they say más, that means more abundantly. That means not only should you breathe, move your limbs, talk, speak, but you should walk in blessings. David said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. He maketh me to lie down in what kind of pastures? That means Jesus lead you out of brown fields. Why do cows break out? Anybody from the country besides me? I know Breck from Mississippi, so he should know what I'm talking about. Listen. Why do cows break out? Because the grass is greener. You should be willing to break out of that brown place you're in. God is going to show you greener pastures that you're going to jump the fence. Say with me, jump the fence. Anybody ready to leap out of their trouble? Don't y'all scare breaking here. We ain't in church. Don't y'all, I don't want him to run out of here, y'all know. Y'all might get excited and stuff like that. But can I tell you something? I met him a long time ago, many, many years ago. And we always, when I meet with him, we always talk. We have dialogue. It's like when you talk to God. You shouldn't just stand there and tell God, in monologue, tell God everything you want him to know, and get up and don't wait on him to speak back to you. You want to know why our prayers are not answered? It's because, Father, Father, God, Father, God, I got this. I need you to do this, God. Okay, amen. Bye. God's like, are you going to wait on me to tell you how to get out of this? Are you going to wait on me to tell you that your blessing is in this meeting tonight? I know it rained, and somebody said, well, it's raining. I'm not going to come. But watch this. I've learned that seeds are going to fall. Some going to fall on good ground. Some's going to fall on stony ground. But I'm thankful this evening that the seeds that are going to be sown here, naturally and spiritually, is going to be sown on good soil. I don't want them to miss it, and we're going to tape for some of our people that are working. A lot of people work during the week. But before we call break, we talked about 1 Thessalonians. Bring me my pad. Kenneth, right quick. Bring me my pad for me, right quick. I forgot it. Thank you so much. Did y'all have a great day today? Y'all sure? Y'all not smiling? Come on, show me all 20. Come on, how many you supposed to have? 32, but you know some of y'all ain't got 32. Right? Some of y'all brought some that's not really yours, but you brought with your own money, right? Y'all give it up for Kenneth. Come on. A lot of our other young men are playing football and in the band and all those good things, so we're happy for what they are doing. But let's look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 11. Look at Pastor Gandy walking in the room. But he's sharp. But like, can I borrow that shirt? Can I borrow that shirt? I'm going to be like Jesus. I'm going to borrow it and I'm going to give it back to you. He said, you can have it because after you wear it, I don't want it back. But watch this. All the way from Tuskegee. We're looking at this, and it says, and that ye study to be quiet and to do your own business and to work with your own hands. Verse 12 says, that ye may walk honestly toward them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. In biblical economics, God wants you to have integrity. He wants you to have peace. But at the end of this, he says, you ought to be left asking nobody for anything. Now, if I would have known this when I was 12 years old, boy, I would have been brick real partner. If I would have known this when I was 12 years old. But guess what? That's no excuse. Because all of us have an opportunity to read for ourselves. And with the way technology is today, we have, I don't have my cell phone or somewhere, we have all of these apps that we're able to read. Guess what? You don't have to read the Bible or talk to you. You know, when I'm driving, I let the word play and I listen. Instead of turning on the radio, I listen to the word and the word minister to me. And sometimes whatever I'm listening to, I'm like, wow, I got to stop and pull over and write that down before I forget it. if we would investigate happiness, there are so many bad things going on, but it don't have to take your joy. There are a lot of things that are going on that want to bring division, but because you have the love of God in your heart, you know how to love people in spite of. Love covers a multitude of fault because none of us are perfect. We don't always think the right thing, but God still is forgiving, isn't he? You know, so I'm happy. I'm so happy to have a great friend. Now listen, he's going to teach you. He's going to talk to you. He's an expert. I learned from the expert. The Bible says iron sharpeneth iron. And you hear me always tell you, why do you always want to feel like you the best one in the group? You need to get in the group where you feel like you're the least, that you need to come up to the best. If you're going to be better, you can't hang out with all the folks that's sub below you. It's good to go there and help. Now listen, don't get it wrong. It's good to help them, but who's going to help you? Who's going to pull you higher that when you go to those people, you can pull them even higher? So stop being afraid of people. If you know somebody that has knowledge, get you some pen, paper, a pen, and you start writing. Ask questions. And you know what? Stop just listening to people. Watch their lifestyle. People talk like they know, but you follow them home, they don't really have anything. They all talk and no action. And I would do God an injustice to bring somebody before you that don't have anything. God does not operate like that. God wants you to be empowered to be better. Now, you're going to be challenged where you are. The word of God should not only make you feel good, it ought to challenge you to be better. It shouldn't just inspire you for where you are. It should inspire you to say, I'm coming out of this ditch I'm in. You know, some of you like, God's going to bless you. Oh, good, I'm broken. God's going to bless me. People really like that kind of stuff. Baby, it's going to be all right. Keep on praying. The Bible says faith without works is dead. One more thing, and we're going to let Brick have his way. Listen, if you want to hit the lottery, God bless you. If you want to play the one-armed bandit, God bless you. But if you really want to learn how to do it God's way, the Bible even says he that runs after wealth the wrong way is going to take wings and fly, which means if you're not trying to do it God's way and put some time and effort in it, and time will take care, those of you that's trying to get rich overnight, time you go at it, it's going to jump, move. And you're going to find yourself in a deeper and deeper hole because you're trying to get it the wrong way. Somebody said time. Effort. Said time. Effort. Said time and effort. Now, if you do hit the lottery, just bring your portion to the Lord. Hallelujah. Amen. Hey, look, come on. I'm just being honest. Watch this. If you hit the lottery, what would you do with it? Most of you don't even know. You don't have a person like Brick to help you, advise you into what to do with your money. If you hit for $38 million, that $38 million should grow. Not you just take it and buy Pookie and Sinead them all cars. Put the money, say with me, to work. The Bible says he gave them and they put it to the exchangers. The one that took it and hid it, God took that from him because he was a no good servant. So if you have $1 tonight, don't be dismayed. You can take that dollar and make it work for you. If you have $1 million, don't be dismayed. You can take that $1 million and make it work for you. So what I'm trying to tell you, all of us fit between the $1 and the 1 million. Maybe one of us ain't fit between the 20 million. I ain't gonna call no names, hallelujah. But listen, you can take that and make it work. God has no respect of person. This is a great man. He is proving himself. He is an undergraduate of the University of Southern Mississippi. Roll Tide. Y'all ain't saying that in the room. Don't you mention no Auburn either. I said University of Mississippi before I said Auburn. That's right. He has a degree in finance with an emphasis in insurance. He operates State Farm Agency here in Montgomery since 2004. If you go out to Chantilly and you look right there, what's the name of that corner? Chase Curve. It's a brand new. If you go by there at night, the McDonald's across the street, you got these trees with these lights on it. It's very unique. Lights up, and God allowed him to have a vision, him and his wife, and he put that on the corner, and he's blessing a lot of people. He's certified financial planner. He's a CFP since 2010. He completed his CHFC in the summer of 2011. I know y'all don't know what that means. Ask him, because I don't know what it means neither. But let's ask him, all right? Amen. So he's an ambassador, traveler every year as an agent. So he's blessed to go to and fro. He's a chairman of the, Circle agent with State Farm 6 of the last 7 years. So he has, wow, look at all of this stuff. We talked about Chase Curve. He has a development down the shopping center, which is an awesome place. You need to drive by there tonight or tomorrow. Because some of y'all want to check out what I'm bringing before you drive by there tonight. Because some of y'all knows it like that. I said some of y'all knows it like that. You drive on out there, y'all think I'm joking, right? There's Chase. It's sitting right there. You can't miss it. It's in front of Renfro's. That's right. You know what Renfro's is? Where y'all go spend all your money, right? But listen, I'm excited for him, and he's getting ready to come. And she passed these out to you all. Y'all need to look at this. We talked about God's rule for financial success. The first thing was obey God, pay God first, and then the second thing was do what? Pay yourself. How many of you paying yourself? Y'all didn't know that, did you? Y'all pay everybody else. I pay brick, but I'm going to pay myself first. All right? I'm going to pay myself first. He's going to teach those things. It's called order, obeying God's word, giving to God. Now, if you think I want your money, I don't. God gave my own money. But this purpose is to help you the way you can be a blessing to other people. Now, if you're in ministry, you can't really help ministry if you're struggling. You got to first be able to help yourself and your family. When y'all agree with me? What does Pastor Clark want? He wants to see you rise. He wants to see you to be successful. That you can leave an inheritance for your children. That they don't have to come into this world suffering. You have left something great for them. So listen, I want all of you all to just stand up very quickly. Y'all be attentive. Y'all ain't include school. I'm the principal. And I want to pull nobody's ear. Carl, don't go to sleep. I got some nanas out there, so stay awoke. Stay awake. Listen. I'm honored and I'm thankful to call to the stage Brett Honey from Montgomery, Alabama. Come on here, State Farm agent, financial professional, all of that great stuff. Thank you. Let me get him wired up too, y'all, so he can talk.
I can hold the mic or I can wear that,
hold
whatever.
I'll make it easy for you. You may want to walk, so put on your coat. We'll hook this on you.
So if I start beeping with a timer, does that mean it's going to blow up on me? Or? Can you hear me okay?
Y'all can turn up. Yeah, we got you.
Does that got you?
And make sure that
Well, thank you.
I
It may need to come up some.
I might need to turn it around. It'd be even better. All right, you straight.
Good. Can you hear me okay now? Well, I appreciate that warm welcome. I really do. I love coming here. This is the second time I've had an opportunity to come here and speak. And you can just feel, I know you guys probably get used to it, but you can just feel that undercurrent just that spiritual undercurrent when you come here. It's the intentionality. You know, every time I talk to Pastor, it feels like at some point he's going to be like, all right, I got it. You know, this is kind of where we need to be. We've arrived, but it's never the message. It's always, here's what we're going to do next. Here's the next thing we're going to do, whether it's another daycare or another building or something. And I love that. That's the energy. That's the passion. That's God moving in this place. And I don't know, you guys probably get used to it, but I can feel it when I walk in here. It's that spiritual undercurrent that's here. It's a good thing. You know, I truly appreciate that nice introduction that he gave me. But you know, State Farm is what I do. It's not who I am. I mean, number one, I'm a child of God, and that's where we all get our self-worth from. Our self-worth is not because of our net worth. It's because of where we came from. And my real trophies in life are my wife and my children and the relationship that I have with God. And I'm thankful for the blessings that God has just poured out on me. I'm genuinely thankful for those. But I have to remind myself, sometimes all of us in our jobs, we can pour too much into our jobs, and we can think that that's what we are. And again, State Farm is what I do. It's not who I am. And I love my job. I enjoy it. But my real trophies, it's my wife and my kids. I want to have great children. I want to have great grandchildren. I want them to grow up and do something wonderful in this world and touch people's lives and hopefully be able to have a comfortable living where they can remain independent financially and take care of themselves. But I want them also to be able to find their real purpose in life and that purpose that God has for them. And I feel that God has put me on this earth really to be able to help people financially. You know, people are given different platforms in life, and a pastor may stand up in front of a church, and it may have 100, 200, or 5,000 people. Our agency is made up of almost 3,000 or 4,000 households, depending on how it's counted. And that's the platform that we've been given. We have an opportunity to reach those people and help them so that they can then go out and help others in the meantime. So tonight, it's my genuine desire to be able to hopefully give you some realistic, practical information tonight that you can take and leave here and be able to go and maybe make one change in your life that can make a positive difference in your own life financially. Everybody thinks of me, I would say, as, you know, their insurance agent, an insurance guy. And I do love insurance, but what I really do and what we do at our office is we help people avoid two of the biggest financial mistakes that most people make, and that's what I'm going to talk to you on tonight. I don't know if I have a beeper or pointer to be able to move to the next slides, or maybe I can just give you one of these when I want to go to the next slide. But before I just jump right into the meat of that, talking about two of the biggest financial mistakes that most people make, let me share an interesting story with you that'll kind of help illustrate some of the points that I've got to go over. It was a couple of years ago. I had a friend of mine, he's a nice guy, was a family man, and he was headed home from work one day, and he was crossing over Troy Highway, close to Trotman Road down there. And he looked left and he looked right, and he crossed the road and didn't realize it. His words to me, I just never saw him. And you know how fast the traffic can go on Troy Highway. This person's 70 miles an hour coming right at him. This dude swerves to miss him, and he clips that car right in the back. This gentleman spins, goes in the ditch, and it kills that dude, the other gentleman driving that car. $480,000 later, the final payment was made on that claim. When an accident like that occurs, if I were to have caused that accident, it doesn't make me a bad person, but it does make me responsible. Let's go to the first slide in the presentation. The number one financial mistake that most people make is they fail to cover themselves properly against everyday risk. Go to the next slide. It's a failure to protect against everyday risk. So we all face risk every day, and in order to be able to invest for the future, we have to first insure against what can go wrong today. See, that man can't save money fast enough to have had an accident like that and then not have the proper amount of insurance. So the biggest financial mistake that I see people make is they fail to protect against everyday risk. I'm going to give you some more information on that in just a moment, and I'm also going to point out what those 7 key critical risks are. The second biggest financial mistake that most people make is they fail to plan for the future. I probably do 100 to 200 appointments a year, and I meet with families, And most families will spend more time planning a summer vacation than they do actually planning out their finances. And many times it's just because simply they don't know. They don't know where to get started, and then it's not a lot of fun either. So one of the things that we do in our office, let's go to the next slide, is we have this little conversation in order to help people, and we call it Your World. So the way it starts is we'll sit down with each family, and this is what I want to do with you tonight, so that you can imagine you're in this conversation in my office, and you can kind of mentally, in your mind's eye too, go through this conversation, and it may be able to point out a few things where you realize this is an area where I need to make a change. So as I meet with families, I talk to them that, number one, you're the center of your world. You know, everybody loves you, and they love you for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons they love you is that you generate income. So as I meet with families, I have to figure out, where does the income come from for this household? Do they have a job in which they go to, and then that job pays them income, money, a wage? Do they own rental houses where it's passive income? Where does the income come from? Is it a one-income household or a two-income household? Once we've got an idea about where the income is coming from, check this out. This makes it really, really simple. It helps me as a planner to be able to understand what happens when the money comes in. When money comes into any household, it goes in one of two directions. It's either going to go to help somebody support their family, which includes themselves, or it's going to support and purchase assets in one of two directions. So what we have to do is we have to find out about this person's family. Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? What's the family dynamic? Now I'm going to pause just a moment and I'm going to keep going. Why do you think that it's important to have an understanding about the family dynamic of this household when it comes to finances? Because the family, if we were to go around the room and ask what's the most important thing to you, I think every one of us would say it's our family. Are they caring for an aging parent? Are their parents passed away? Understanding that family dynamic is important. So once we get a good understanding about the family, then we begin to look and see, what are the assets? Do they have cars? Do they have a four-wheeler? Do they have jet skis? Do they have a boat? Do they own a home? Do they rent? Have they started investments? This is lining up for them. What are the people and the stuff that matters most to this household? Once we have that information, so I want you to mentally think in your own mind about where you are. Once that information is in front of us, then we're able to take a step back and look. Remember, we said the number one financial mistake that people make is they don't properly remove those everyday financial risks, where there are 7 key critical risks that households face. If any one of these occur, it could potentially be financially devastating. So there's not 70. So stay with me. I know sometimes when it gets that much on the page, my brain can almost hit not compute because it thinks, this is getting too complicated. There's 7 key critical risks, not 700. The number one risk as I sit down with families, the first thing I think about is your health. Because we all know a major medical procedure can cost a lot of money. And if somebody doesn't have health insurance, I don't want anything to erode that IRA. I don't want anything to erode whatever amount of savings somebody has managed to accumulate. I don't want them to have to put that onto a credit card. So again, insurance protects against what can go wrong to give us the permission to be able to invest at some point for what can go right. So the first thing I think about as a good risk advisor is your health. The second thing I think about is the income. That's that disability box. What that means is, let's say that the person up here, John, works for Home Depot, and then John gets into a car accident and he can't physically go to Home Depot anymore and do the job that he's been doing, and his paycheck stops. How's their world going to be? If your last paycheck was in fact your last paycheck, how long could you make it? The biggest financial mistake that I see most people make is they don't properly protect themselves against everyday risk. Is there any reason for us to think that life's going to treat us any different than somebody else? We don't want these things to happen, but that doesn't mean that the risk doesn't exist. So that's disability insurance. They can get that through their employer. They could go to a State Farm or whatever their insurance company is. And there's things they can do to bring the premium down. So they can take higher deductibles on stuff so that it's not eating them up every month. But then they choose to take on some of the smaller claims and losses by having a little bit of money in a savings account. So there's ways to do it. But these are the risks that homes are exposed to, and the risk don't care whether you like it or not, and they don't care whether you know it or not. The homes are exposed to these risks. The third thing I think about as I visit with households is what if something happened and it took somebody's life, especially mom or dad, and they passed away. Emotionally, it's terrible. For anybody who's lost a loved one, I mean, emotionally it's awful. But financially, it doesn't have to be just as awful. There is something that somebody can do about that. That's life insurance. Now, the fourth risk that I think about as a good risk advisor, this one's really interesting. It's the risk of living too long. Hard to believe that that would be a risk, but they call that risk a longevity risk. What that means is if this person lives a really, really long time, is it possible that they could outlive their assets? Then they're broke, relying on the government or their kids to take care of them in their old age. So that's a retirement conversation. What that means is, are we saving a little bit of money now, and are we making good, wise decisions when it comes Social Security time for retirement to make sure that we have a successful retirement? That's what that one is. It's the risk of longevity. So one more little piece on that before I move on to the others. Longevity, when someone reaches retirement, is the multiplier of every other risk in retirement, and I'll prove it to you. If somebody retires at 65, and then both the husband and wife get killed in a car wreck at 68, does it matter if inflation's 10%? Does it matter if they're spending too much money? They're dead. They didn't live to 95. So that's why longevity is such a multiplier when somebody gets to that retirement age. Because if they live long enough, they can run out of money. If they die quickly, they don't run out of money. So it's understanding that, it's knowing what the risks are, it's bringing them to the surface, and then it's talking to someone about it to say, how do I remove these? What can I do? And it's not that expensive to solve those problems. The last three, which is the risk associated with somebody's property, their automobile, and the liability. Those are big risks that households face. Anybody that owns a home, it likely can be the most valuable asset other than their income stream that they own. So if that house burns down at midnight and the insurance canceled at 11 a.m., guess who still wants their money on the first of every month? The bank. How are they going to go get another loan to then buy a house? So making sure that someone's got the right insurance on the homes or property or rental homes that they own, because those are things that can wipe you out if you don't have the right insurance. Same way with an automobile. An automobile can be a very expensive piece of property, and if that vehicle is wrecked and there's no insurance on it, and then there's a loan, well, it's hard to go get another loan when that loan's not paid off, and then you don't have a vehicle to get to work. It can really start to snowball. Also with an automobile, the liability piece. This is a little bit like that story I shared with you just a moment ago. If you blow through a stop sign and you hit a family of three, you kill the driver of that other car, and it's a $300,000 claim, you got to ask yourself, how much of that $300,000 do I want to pay out of my pocket? How much do I want my insurance company to pay? And if my insurance company has me in the state minimum liability limits of $25,000, I just got to understand, I'm taking on the risk, the endless, ever-increasing amount above that. So if I have a $25,000 liability that I've agreed with my insurance company that that's all they're going to pay, and I hit a $50,000 vehicle, the insurance company is going to pay $25,000, and the other 25,000 is going to fall on me. The idea with the insurance program is to build a wall of protection around the people and the property and the stuff that matter most, so that when something does happen, it doesn't just wipe us out. We recover from it, we move on, and we're still able to realize our dreams. And the dreams, a lot of times, it's going to be educate the kids, pay off a house, financial freedom in retirement, maintain a certain lifestyle. That's really going to be all of our dreams if we had to put them in a nutshell. So you need to be able to devise a plan to help you be able to recover when something like that happens. Now, I'm going to open it up for some questions. I genuinely seek to serve you guys and help in any way that I can. Is there anybody here that has any specific questions right now about what we've talked about so far? Some of the most basic items, too, is to make sure that you got more coming in than you got going out. I don't care how complicated and complex somebody's finances may get, how many buildings they may build, or how many businesses they own. You got to have more coming in than you got going out. If there's more going out than there is coming in, that's just not going to work long term. So that's number one, too. I'm going to leave you with this one question, too. And I don't have to leave right away, but I want you to think about this one thing. What's the one thing that when you leave here tonight, just one, that you know if you executed on this one thing with excellence would have the biggest impact on your financial scoreboard? What's the one thing? Not 100, because you can't execute on 100 different things, new things with excellence. They'll be mediocre. What's the one, maybe two, that you can write down that when you leave here, you say, you know what, if I do this one thing different, and I execute on this one thing with excellence, it's going to have the biggest impact on getting me to where I want to be. Once you figure out what that one thing is, it may be setting an appointment with somebody. Because here's my gift to you. I'll gladly sit down with any one of you one-on-one and help educate you and teach you and help you figure out how to build this wall of protection, if you so choose. You can let Pastor Clark know, or I can leave some cards and I'll do that. It may be to write out a budget where I really have to get a handle on, let me get my bank statement. Page 1 of the bank statement shows this is the amount of money that came in and this is the amount that went out. Deposits and withdrawals. Page 1 of the bank statement. Is that good? So ask yourself again, what's the one thing that if I really execute on this one thing with excellence is going to have the biggest impact on the scoreboard? Your own personal financial scoreboard. Once you answer that, then you can ask yourself that same question again. Now what's the one thing? Now that I've done that, now what's the one thing? Just one, where if I do really, really well with this, and then you can continue to do that. We call it in our office the slight edge. What that means is you're not going to hear some one piece of information and then just bang, the doors open up. It doesn't work that way. It's little bitty, tiny baby steps repeated over time long enough to allow that really positive decision to start to work. Because every decision in our finances, it's either an error in judgment or it's a simple positive action repeated over time. One error in judgment, here's the biggest challenge with the slight edge piece. If I make one error in judgment, it doesn't necessarily wipe me out right away. So it doesn't show its face right away. And I think I can get away with it again. And then it turns into I have an error in judgment, a small, simple error in judgment, the second time, and then the third time, and then the fourth time. And then that problem becomes so big that the person begins to feel like I almost can't fix it. And that's where you can come back and you don't have to hit that not compute. It doesn't have to be paralysis. It can be, what's the one thing, just one today, that if I do this really good, it's going to be a simple positive action. It's not going to be that error in judgment. And then if I keep doing that long enough, it's going to start to pay off. Anything else?
Yes, Brett, can you explain the difference between term life and whole life?
Absolutely. So when somebody goes to get life insurance, there's only two kinds of life insurance on planet Earth. There's only two kinds. It's either term or permanent. And it's not to say one's better than the other. They're just very, very different. So term life insurance. I don't care if you get it through your employer where it's group at work. I don't care if somebody buys it online. I don't care if they come to a State Farm or New York Life. Remember, there's only two kinds, term or permanent. Term life insurance is just that. It would be a contract with an insurance company that lasts for a term, a certain amount of time. It's death benefit for a certain amount of time. So most insurance companies will write some kind of term life policy. It may be a 10-year term, or a 20-year term, or a 30-year term. But we're going to be the insurance company for just a moment. We are sitting in the executive corridors of the company, and we're going to decide who we want to insure. And when somebody applies for insurance with us, we are Life Insurance Inc. is the name of our company. They send in an application, and this person is 30 years old, and then we do a health profile on them. Their height to weight's fine, their blood pressure's fine, their cholesterol, triglycerides, liver enzymes, all this health profile comes back and it looks good. Well, if we know through law of large numbers, we know if we take a group of 1,000 30-year-old non-tobacco males, we know, based on mortality tables, how many of them will still be alive in 20 years. We can't tell you which individual one is going to die, but we know, based on the human race and how long it's been around and mortality tables, we know how many of them will still be alive. Then we know exactly what to charge over that 20 years to be able to pay the claims and make the money we want to make. So it is death benefit for a certain amount of time. And the insurance company is not trying to bet, on who's going to die. They know. They know because they pool that risk together. So a term life policy for the insurance company says, we're going to give this person so much protection for this amount of time. Now, what happens then at the end of that term? Basically, that's it. So if I paid, let's just say I paid $35 a month for this policy, and I did that for 12 months, that's $420 a year that this person's paying, right? And if it's a 20-year term and they did that for 20 years, that would be $8,400 that I, the customer, would have paid in to have had this life policy for 20 years. If I'm 40 when I take it out, and it covers me until I'm 60, if I live until I'm 61, this money is just gone and the insurance just goes away. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how it is. So let me ask you another question then. Why did the industry, so we're back to Life Insurance Inc., why did the industry create term life insurance? It's much more affordable. The price is $35 or even $20 if you're younger. And also, if you think about it, right now I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. If Daddy doesn't make it home right now, it's a big deal financially, because I want them to have opportunity. I want them to go to the schools I want them to go to. I want them to be able to drive a car when they get their license. I want them to have straight teeth. All of the things that we all want for our kids, and that stuff costs money. And if I don't make it home, the income stops. Well, 20 years from now, hopefully the house is paid off and the kids are grown. They're all doctors and out of the household. So that's the thought process behind term. There's nothing wrong with it. If that's all somebody can afford, that's much better than having nothing. Because right at some point, sometimes folks have young children at home, and if they died today, it causes a much bigger problem than if they die 30 years from now. hopefully they can make it. So now let's talk about permanent. That was term. All group through an employer is term. All of it. I don't care if it's the power company. I don't care if it's the state of Alabama. I don't care if it's Hyundai. It's all term. It's term life insurance. So permanent works like this. You've probably heard of whole life or universal life or some of those different names. But remember, it's either term or permanent. All those names are just a different flavor of permanent. So permanent is just that. It's not temporary. It's not designed in the very beginning to expire in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. It's permanent. So if that term policy was $35 a month, how much would the permanent policy be? Somebody throw a guess out there. Let's say $100. So let's look at it. Let's look at the difference. So if I paid $100 a month, and there's 12 months in a year, that means for that same amount of death benefit, I'm paying $1,200 a year. If I did that for 20 years, that means I would have paid the insurance company $24,000. You with me? Now, at the end of let's say 20 years from now, just like the term policy, everything is perfect like we talked about. The kids are grown. The house is paid off. The kids are all doctors. With the permanent policy that I put $24,000 in, if I don't want it at age 60, I could cash it in and get all my money back. So they would probably give me $30,000. Or if I get out there at that age, I may have a special needs grandchild. I just don't know. The house may not be paid off. One of my girls might have gone through a divorce and have to move back in. If I still want the life insurance, I can just keep it and keep paying for it. Term is life insurance for a term, a certain amount of time. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, if you're lucky enough to die within that term, somebody gets paid. If you don't, the insurance company gets paid. Permanent life insurance is like buying a house. If you rented an apartment for a while, you can live in it, you got a roof over your head, but when you move out, that's it. They don't give you your rent back. When you buy a home, you could live in it for 25 years. When you get ready to move out, you can sell it. And you can get all of the money that you put into it back. And in some places, there's actually appreciation in home values. In a permanent life policy, there's appreciation. The insurance company is paying them interest too. There's only 2 kinds of life insurance on planet Earth. 2. It doesn't matter if you buy it online or wherever. It's either some kind of term policy or it's something that's permanent. All the other stuff, you could look into it, but don't let the noise begin to confuse you. It's either a term policy or permanent. And term at some point is going to expire. We got one question.
How do you determine how much life insurance that you need?
That's great. Will you play along with me? So hopefully everybody here, we can use a specific example of how we can come up with that amount. So if you and I were sitting in my office, I would just ask you some of those questions. I'd say, hey, if you don't make it home tonight and you really were to pass away, what do you want to have happen? Do you want to pay the house off? So play along with me. If you can find it cheap enough, what's everything you would want to do if you could really find a policy cheap enough? Would you want to pay the house off?
Yes.
How much would it take to pay the house off?
Maybe $150.
Okay. Are there any other loans that you would want to pay off?
Yes, we'll try to pay all of them off.
So cars or credit cards or anything else, if you could find it cheap enough, what's everything else? What would it take to pay everything else off? Another $50,000?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll say another $50,000. Now, would you also want to make sure that a funeral is paid for?
Yes.
Are we going to be burning incense and like build you a shrine? Are we putting you, going to put you, have you cremated? What?
A funeral, regular funeral.
Okay. So a regular funeral can be anywhere from say $12,000 to $15,000. I mean, if you got to buy the plot and uncover the grave and then cover the grave, it just depends. So if somebody says 15,000, now do you have any children?
One,
How old?
14.
Okay. If you passed away, would you want college to be paid for the 14-year-old?
Yes.
Do you want them to go to Duke or Vandy, or do you want them to go to Auburn or Alabama?
Alabama.
Okay, I heard a roll tide. So a lot of folks, right, how much would you want to put away for, what's your child's name?
Zariah.
Zariah. How much would you want to put away for Zariah's college?
You probably at least 100,000. Yeah.
Yeah, that's common, folks. Some people will say 100, some people will say 50. So again, what we're doing is we're looking to say, if we can find it cheap enough, what's everything we'd want to do? And then if it's not cheap enough, then we'll have to start peeling some of these things
Taking some
back.
of it off, okay.
But we'll say another 100 for that. So how much of your income with the house paid off do you want them to have every month if you really did pass away?
How much of the income would I want them to have?
How much income do you want them to have a month to be able to put gas in the cars, pay the insurance, light bills, food, the standard of living that they're used to? How much income do you want them to have every month?
About 75%.
So we'll just come up with a number then. We'll say that's $2,000 a month, $1,000 a month.
2,000.
Okay, we'll say $2,000 a month. And if he's 14, how long would you want them to have that income? Some people will
14,
say, I
so
want to
what?
get them out of high school.
Yeah,
Others
I
will
was
say,
gonna
I
say
want
at
to get
least
them out of
25
college.
or something, 24,
Okay.
because he's 14, about
Okay.
10 years.
So if we're doing $2,000 a month, there's 12 months in a year, that's $24,000. If you did that for 10 years, that's $240. Plus the other, we'll just say $350 on the other side. So sometimes folks will hear that and they'll go, wow, that's $700,000. We'll say, okay, let's go look and see what that cost. I mean, it all depends. If you can get it cheap enough, you'd buy 10 million. But you just can't find that cheap enough. So then we're able to look and go see, what would that really, really cost? And if it's $82 a month, then each family's got to decide, yeah, it's worth it. You know, if I could really get it for $82 a month, I'd do it. And then you got to send in an application to some insurance company, and they're going to get you to tinkle in a cup and draw blood and all that stuff. They're going to check you out to see if you're healthy. Because if somebody's got a real, they're battling cancer or something like that, the insurance company's not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So while somebody is young and healthy, even if they're old and healthy, while they're healthy, that's the time to send it in. If somebody comes in my office and says, I want life insurance, I promise they're gonna throw the kitchen sink at you. Because the insurance companies, now we're Insurance Inc. again, okay? We got one shot to turn them down. Because if we don't turn them down now, it's a contract, and us, we're the insurance company, we're on it. And if they die, we got to pay. So we've got to analyze the risk when it comes in. Are they healthy? They can have diabetes, high blood pressure, be a few pounds overweight. That's all right. But that's going to affect the price as compared to somebody who may be tofu eating 10 mile a day running, Orange Theory maniac. It's just going to be a difference between those two folks. Let's say it comes back and that 700-something thousand is $190 a month, and the person goes, whoa, I can't stick with that every month. Then we got to go back and say, what do we want to take out? What do we want to tool down? So what we just did in your head, you could use the acronym LIFE, life. LIFE. The L would stand for loans. Hey, do you want to pay the house off? Are there any other loans you want to pay off? The I is for the income. How much income do you want them to have? The F is for funeral or final expenses. If you can find it cheap enough, do you want to have a policy that will also pay off the funeral? And then the E is for education. If there's a child, do we want to have enough money to where if you pass away, do you want it to pay for the college or maybe they're in private school or whatever? So that's how you can quickly come up with an idea. Some people say 10 times your salary. There's nothing wrong with that too. We just get a little more, or you can get a little more detailed and kind of ask yourself those questions too. LIFE, loans, income, final expenses, and education. Any other questions?
Here I come. Hold on. I'm coming.
I'll repeat it for you. Yeah, do that.
Okay, so what if you're out of school, you just starting on life, working, got a salary, getting life going? What kind of policy would you recommend that type of person get if they're young, healthy?
You know, if you're young and healthy, there's no doubt you could start off with, say, some kind of $100,000 permanent policy.
Okay.
Because then what you're doing with a permanent policy, the age is based on, the price of that policy is based on the age of the person when they took it out. When my two girls were born, I did a $100,000 permanent policy on them right then. They were 0. So it locked in the premium of a 0-year-old. So if somebody's 20 years old, it's going to hurt. You would rather spend the money on, I wish I could tell you I could make paying for insurance sexy. It's not. It's a bill. It's a bill. It's no fun. But when you've got that permanent policy and you go ahead and lock that in when you're 22 years old, when you're 40 years old, the price of that same $100,000 policy, a $100,000 permanent policy on you would probably be $40, $45 a month. The permanent policy. It may be 48 as soon as I say that. When you're 40, that same one would be 100, 110. So you lock that price in, plus you give the money, the cash value that's building inside that policy, you give it longer to grow and compound and accumulate. So that'd be one of the things that I would suggest. Yes, ma'am.
You want to go first?
Well, whoever's got the mic.
It really doesn't matter. I just have a general question because I almost paid my car for 6 months. Can you refinance your car through insurance?
Well, when somebody refinances their car, here's what that means to refinance. So finance in general means I'm going to get a loan and I'm going to pay that loan back, as opposed to paying for it with cash. So financing is if I went next door to the Ford place and I wanted to buy a Mustang, if I'm not going to pay them cash, I've got to get some bank or some credit institution to loan me the money and then I pay them back over time. So let's say my credit when I buy this vehicle is not great. And Santander does the loan and the loan's at 12%. And I've been paying that loan on time for 12 or 14 months. I could go to another bank, whether it be State Farm Bank. An insurance company's not going to refinance it. Some kind of bank is going to refinance it. So State Farm has a bank called State Farm Bank. But you could go to Regions, you could go to Max, you could go to any other financing institution and go, hey, let me see what kind of loan terms you have. Because Santander's got me at 22% over here, and I've been paying it on time. Can I send this thing in with State Farm Bank, for example, and then maybe they could give me a loan instead of at 20%, it's at 8%. And all that means is that the payment's going to go down. It's just a lower fee to the bank, because the higher interest just means a higher fee to the bank. So yes, you can refinance a loan. We probably do 3, 4, 5 of those a month out of our office, and it's just a matter, and the only reason that we send in probably 12 a month, and there's probably only 3 or 4 that work out to where they refinance. So why would they all 12 not work out? Sometimes the terms that State Farm Bank comes back with are not as good as the terms that they already have. So they wouldn't want to do that. The only reason they would want to refinance it and follow through with that refinance is if the terms of the loan were better, which specifically would mean the interest rate's a little bit lower.
So how long should I wait before I refinance my car with State Farm?
I would say if somebody booked a loan today, and if their credit's fantastic, they could refinance today. If they know that there's a few challenges on their credit and they're trying to rebuild their credit, they're going to want to wait at least probably 10 months, more like 12 to 18 months. It just takes some time where they can see that those loans are being paid on time before it's going to give that financing institution really confidence to lower that interest rate. So if their credit is great, but they just didn't feel, or even good, and they didn't feel like they got good terms, they could go in the next day. There is no waiting period. But to rebuild their credit, really about 12 months.
Okay, I just had a question about like if you wanted to increase your policy. Like I have a policy now.
Mm-hmm. What
My
kind of
children-
policy?
Life
An
insurance.
okay,
Life
a
insurance
life
policy.
policy.
My children are very young. They 9 months and 2, so
Good
they're young.
So mama's
policy
busy
is-
right now. Is mama
Yeah.
getting any sleep?
No,
No.
not really.
Mhm.
I have them on a $300,000
Uh-huh.
policy, but I know in like 5-10 years I want to increase it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm not sure how to go. Like, how do you go about doing that? Do you?
So what you would want to do more than likely is go in and sit down with somebody and talk to them about some specifics on your children. So you can look at some of those different policies. So like we talked about earlier, there's only how many kinds of life insurance on planet Earth? 2. It's term or permanent. So once you get into that permanent category, there are some different flavors. So for example, on my girls, I did what's called a 20 pay. What that is the premiums are paid in 20 years, and then it's done. So I'm going to pay State Farm roughly about $700 a year, and I do that 20 times. And then I'm done. There's never another premium that has to go in it. It's called a limited pay whole life policy. Well, some people may want a whole life policy because it's a little bit cheaper and they're going to pay the premiums over the whole life of the child. Well, I just personally didn't want to do that. So there's different flavors and there's differences in the different flavors, and then you would be in a good spot if you had somebody that could sit down with you and educate you and teach you. Then you would know, oh, here's the differences. Here's how the different policies work. I like this feature over that feature. Because in most of these plans, there is no such thing as one plan is just the best plan. The best plan is the one that you will work. If you'll work it and you'll stick with it, you can make it work. For example, some people will say buy term and invest the difference. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That can work too. But they didn't say buy term and spend the difference. And that's what most people do. So that's not working the plan. That's somehow convincing themselves to kind of cop out a different way. So finding somebody you can go in and sit down with and say, show me a 10 pay, show me a 15 pay, show me a whole life. Let me see them. What does the cash value look like in each of those policies in 15 or 20 years? Plus, when I have the opportunity, when my girls are, say, 25 or 30, I'm going to pull them into the office and I'm going to say, hey, come in here, I want to show you something. This is something your mom and dad did for you before you even knew what was going on, and I want to show you how this works. You're 25 years old. You see the cash value in this policy? It's $18,000. Now, the next year, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to say, you see the cash value now? It's $19,300. Guess how much of that money I put in? 0. So where did that money come from? What made it go from $18,000 to $19,000? I'm going to use that policy to try to teach her a little bit about money. And at some point, I'm going to give it to her. And I'm going to say, now it's yours. And I'm going to do that when I think she's financially responsible, so she doesn't try to come in at 15 and name her boyfriend as beneficiary or something. Or go suck all the money out of it. Daddy's going to own it. She's the insured, but Daddy's going to own it until she gets to be old enough. Even at 28 or 30, when I give it to her, for me, if it's a whole life policy that's still got to be paid, I just gave her, in her mind, a bill. I didn't give her a policy. So that's why I liked the 20 pay, because when I give it to her, it's going to be completely paid up. If it's a $300,000 policy on a child, she's probably on your term policy as a rider. So she's probably on there. It probably has like $20,000 of coverage on the child as a rider. It's a great thing to do on your group stuff because it's very, very inexpensive. It's a Band-Aid. It gives you something on that child, but it's most of those at group, at work, they're not building cash. It's not locking in the age that you want to give to them later, but it is something on them. And many times you can have 3 or 4 children, and that child term rider only has one fee, meaning it may be $8 for the child term rider, whether you have 2 kids or 10. So the way you win is you have 10 kids. You really stick it to the insurance company that way when you got 10 kids, see?
Don't that rider fall off?
It falls off most of the time when the kids reach either 21 or 25. Take advantage of the benefits that you can through your employer. Take advantage of those. One other, I guess you could say, pothole that I want to make you aware of with the benefits through an employer. My mom worked for the post office in McGee, Mississippi. So when you go in and you get your stamps or you want to mail some kind of package, first class, she worked at the window. You can't get better benefits than a federal employee working through the post office, right? It's a government job. Those benefits that we all have through our employers, it is a benefit of working there. She had a stroke at a very young age. In her early 50s, she'll never work again. Guess what happened to those benefits? It is a benefit of working there. So it's very common that folks will say, that's right, I may work for Hyundai, I may work for the power company, I may work for the state of Alabama, whatever. Take advantage of those benefits. But I could also go look at a policy outside of work too. Because if I get cancer and it takes many, many years before it takes my life, I could lose those benefits. But if I have it through a State Farm or New York Life or somebody like that, then you own it. It doesn't matter where you work. But it has to be bought first with our health, second with the premium. So take advantage of those at work, sign up. And the main thing you need also is that long-term disability. You don't have to have every short-term and every cancer policy and every accident policy. Those are great, but if you keep adding everything, it'll start to wear you out, man. I mean, you get your paycheck and ain't nothing left. The big things, the big items are health insurance. They're not up there anymore. It's the health insurance, it's long-term disability, it's some kind of life insurance, and on the retirement piece, it is get started. Get started. I don't care if it's with $10, get started. And then pay yourself more later. If you start with 10, when the next year rolls around, bump it up to 20. And then bump it up to 30. That discipline has got to come from you. It's not going to come from your employer. They can't want it more than you want it. You just got to bump it up. You won't miss. If you try to start with $100 a month, that may be tough. But if you start with 10 and then you go to 20 and then you go to 30 and then you go to 40 and then you go to 50 and then you work your way up to 100, you'll wonder how in the world I ever get here. That's the way to do it on the retirement piece. Anything else?
Explain, we're talking about retirement, the difference between investing in a single stock versus investing in mutual funds.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't understand when you're investing, say, at Walmart, if Walmart take a tumble, that's all your eggs in one basket.
Yep.
Versus investing your money in a mutual fund that may be made up of 10 large stock companies or whatever.
Yep.
And that's more safer.
Yep.
So would you explain it to them?
Gladly. Because you hear all these terms and it just can get so confusing. And a lot of times I can even read the terms, but until I really had somebody explain it to me, it gets hard to understand. So in the good old US of A, we live in the United States where there are private property rights. So if you drive by a building downtown and it has regions on the side of it, for example, that company is not owned by the government. Say like in China, it's a communist society, their companies can be owned by the government. No matter how big a company is here, it's still owned by some individuals. So stock is ownership. It's ownership in a company. So you could own a share of Google. You could own a share of Microsoft, literally by buying a stock. And if anybody has a 401k or an IRA and they're putting money in a mutual fund, they own shares of Google and Microsoft and Exxon. What that means when it's a share of stock, all it would be is literally a piece of paper. It's intangible personal property. It's property rights in the United States. It says I own one share of this company. So what would make that share of stock become more valuable? What would make it go up? Why would it be worth any more tomorrow than it is today? And it's based on that company's ability to grow. They've got some kind of business plan where they're selling more iPhones and more iPods a year from now than they were even selling last year. They're generating revenue is the mother's milk of a stock's value. They're making more money. So whether it's Walmart or Exxon or whoever, when somebody buys that stock, it has the ability to go up. That's one share of stock. You with me? It's ownership. Well, we may say, just like Pastor was pointing out, if I have shares in one company, well, then I have a lot of risk. What's my big risk when I own shares in one company? That one company could go under. So the markets, the free market system, they recognize that, and they say, hey, what if we could allow this person who's putting $100 a month in, rather than just buy one share of stock, what if we could set this thing up to where they buy not just 2 shares, but 3 shares, but 4 shares? They get diversification, where they could buy hundreds of companies. That's all a mutual fund is. If you give me $100 and you give me $100 and you give me $100 and I put in $100 and we pile it up on this table right here, pretty soon we've got a nice little chunk of money. And together we can go buy the shares of many companies. And then a professional money manager will manage that money for the mutual benefit of all of those people that have their money in this mutual fund. So that's where the name mutual fund comes from. When the money comes in, rather than you just going to buy one individual stock, it will buy shares in this mutual fund which hold hundreds of shares. So just like that, it gives this person instant diversification. That's what you're doing inside your 401k. If you've got a 401k and the employer offers it, the challenge becomes what happens when you flip on the page to look to see what your investment options are. There's 90 mutual funds to choose from. And you're sitting there going, I don't know. I don't have a clue. I mean, what's the difference in an international fund and a global advantage fund? I'm just this one. And then it becomes hard. But you can always call those people and say, hey, this is my age. This is how long before I retire. You tell me which one to pick. And most of them will tell you. They'll tell you. The worst plan of action is no plan of action. A mutual fund, let me ask this question. Can a mutual fund go to zero? Could I lose it all in the stock market? Not a mutual fund. It ain't going to zero. It may drop even 40%. It's not going to zero. Now, if I own one share of stock, can it go to zero? Yes. Absolutely. Because that one company can go down. But when I own a mutual fund and there's 500 companies in there, they're not all going away. If they all 500 go away, it ain't going to matter anyway. It's not like there's going to be some bank somewhere to where your money's going to be safe there. I mean, that means every company went away. So here's the lesson in that last piece. When you're putting money in that mutual fund, every month, $100, every month, and then there is some financial crisis that hits, and all of the wise men of Waffle House start to tell you, get out. It's going to zero. You better get your money out right now. I'm losing all this money. You just got to stick with it when you're in that mutual fund. And you got to have somebody that you can talk to that can talk you down off that ledge, because you just got to stick with it. Now, if you're already at retirement, it's kind of a little different there, but I hope that helped some with the difference. And I know it's a lot. It's a lot, and you can go a lot of different directions. But I promise my gift to you guys is I will gladly sit down with each one of you if you want to, and I'll help you build a plan, build that wall of protection around the people and the stuff that matter the most to you, and explain. You're welcome to bring your 401k statements in any way that I can serve you and help you. I'd be glad to do that in whatever capacity you think best. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
could have repeated it. If you have all this, and you want to switch it from one company to another, do
Switch
you all,
what?
like if you
Like
have,
You have an IRA
IRA
somewhere?
and you have insurance, just all that you've been talking about, you have a plan with one company, are you able to switch it to another one, or do you have to start off brand new?
People switch. So part of the regulations that are in place that from the federal government is they realize that too. They don't want the public to be locked in somewhere if you're receiving subpar advice or subpar returns. So you got a lot of rights as a consumer in the public. You can switch and go wherever you want to go. You could walk into someone else's office, you come in with your statements, and before you would do that, of course, you would want to sit down and talk to that person, and hopefully they're asking you some questions like, hey, tell me ultimately what you want to accomplish. Paint me a picture. When do you think you'll retire? And when you do, what do you want to do? Do you want to just sit on the front porch on the rocker? Do you want to take trips once a year? You know, you want to be smoking Cubans, or you just want to be smoking old cigarette butts? How do you want to spend your time once you get to retirement? So that you're meeting with somebody, hopefully, then they can take a look at what you've got and be able to say, you know, this train ain't going to end up at your station. It's not what you need to be in. If it were me, these are the changes I would make to the portfolio, and here's why. And then once you've got confidence in that person, that they've got the ideas that can help you, then you say, yeah, I want to move it. Then it's just paperwork. So when somebody, that's called a rollover or a transfer. And when somebody rolls the money from one institution to another, does that trigger taxes? I heard some yeses and some no's. No. And that's another advantage that the government gives you. You can roll it from one place to another. You never see the money. It's not like they give the money to you. It just goes from institution A to institution B. You never touch the money, so it's not a taxable event. You just going, I don't want to be with you anymore. I want to be over here. You just fill out the paperwork, it just happens. It takes probably a month for that to happen. And same way with insurance. If somebody goes, I'm not getting good prices over here, I'm not getting good service, then they just switch. Literally, they'll go in and say, today's August the 14th. Breck, I want you to make everything effective August the 20th. I'm going to call my other company and cancel August the 20th. Rather than pay them, you pay this company. So switching that stuff is just that easy. But there's got to be some reason to do that. It's got to get you to a better spot, put you in a better place. Well, look, thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all letting me come speak to you. I really hope this was helpful. And truthfully, if you want to visit one-on-one, just let me know. I'll be glad to visit with you.
Y'all get it from Brick. Before he leaves, I want to tell y'all something I learned. Having adequate insurance amount coverage means a whole lot. A lot of people have insurance. You're all right. You're all right. And something happens, and they say, no, you're all right. And they say, my insurance company didn't pay, but you didn't have adequate coverage. And the insurance company is only going to pay what you got coverage for. And I think one of the biggest things with automobiles is insurance and gap insurance. And Brick can correct me if I'm wrong. They go only pay what that adjuster or whatever the market value of that car is. You can buy a car, brand new car, and drive it off a lot and have an accident. And the insurance companies are only going to pay what that market or however they use those things for. You're like, I just bought this car, but you still got to pay them $5,000 more. There's a lot to think about when you're dealing with money. There's a lot to think about. And I think when you buy cars, they do offer gap insurance. And whatever they sell you that car for, you just sign that contract. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead. Here, no.
Yes. Uh-huh. Most of them are same. Most of them are the same. Some states will have, say, on the uninsured motorist side, they'll also have property damage where other companies that if you hit by somebody that doesn't have insurance, it's covered out of the collision portion. But for the most part, it's going to be the same. Now, the price will be different depending on where somebody's coming from. So folks that are moving here from New Orleans, they usually see their price goes down. But if they move here from, say, somewhere that's more of a rural area in Mississippi, their price can go up because there's just more. The rates are truly based on the actual exposure that's there, the amount of accidents that are going on. It is. Well, it's a contributory state. So if you contribute at all, they can consider that to be your fault. It's crazy. Alabama is one of the only ones where it's a contributory state. What that means is if there's a wreck and somehow they can claim that you contributed to that wreck 1%, you pay for yours and they pay for theirs. Dumb. It shouldn't be that way. It just is. Alabama is one of the few states that still has that provision where it's completely a contributory state. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What part of Florida? Okay. Gotcha. Close to Orlando at all? Yeah. Yeah. Happiest place on earth? If anybody's been to Disney in the summer. Oh, yeah.
Listen, let me tell you, there's so much information, and those of you who are aspiring to be business owners, let me put this little bonus in there. I had to learn this one. You have to make sure you have insurance to cover every component. Every component. Just to have insurance, general insurance, won't cover your employees. Am I right, Brick? So listen, the reason we're doing this is because a lot of us have gone through life and we have done things out of what we see other folks do, and they have suffered. You're going to be in that same line, suffering. You can't explain it all in one night. He's the expert. Like you said, every situation is different. But I will tell you this, as we're talking about paying yourself first, I think Alexis posted on Facebook, can she pay more than $10? I think you answered that question as it relates to whatever you're saving for. That is up to you. But he said something key is discipline. Anytime we're dealing with finance, we have to develop a discipline. That means you have to stick to it. It's a good thing if the employee can take it out before you can see it. I think that's great. Because some of you, if you got to pay it after, he didn't go into talking about the different, like the, 401k, you got the, what's the other one? Roth, RA, and all those things like that. Wow. I mean, you talk to him. I have 401k and I have a Roth, too, I'm doing. And I got to do some stuff with Brick. That's another long story. So, but have y'all learned anything this evening? What is the goal? Put it to you like this, and I'm through. When Jesus ministered to the 5,000, he preached to them, he taught them. But watch this. They were hungry. The disciples said, send them away, for we have nothing. The whole goal of this Bible study series is to get you to the place where you don't just leave people with nothing, you have something. Jesus said, I can't do that. He said, what do you have? He was thankful for what he had. He took what he had. And when you take what you have, God will multiply when you do right with it. It's not in the amount. It's in the effort of taking what you do have and saying, with this, I'm going to be a blessing. Whether you're making $1 or $1 million, you need to decide within yourself that today, I want better for myself. I want better for my family. That I can be a blessing to others that I meet. I encourage you all to talk to him, call him. He will spend time with you. He will ask you the right questions. And but the rest is up to you. I can't make you do it. He can't make you do it. But you have to want it for yourself. I will not stop trying to educate God's people. Because you know why people are dying in communities? Because nobody wants to stand up and present to them a reason to live. Maybe your mom and dad didn't do this. Get past that. But say, for me and my house, we're going to be better. I'm telling you, I can't help nobody if I don't learn to have discipline myself. I can't help anybody if I just say, you know, I'm sometimes like, well, people ain't want to hear this. But what about the person that does? What about the person in life who will be changed? That's what I look at. I don't look at the people that say, this boring. If it's boring, you're going to always be in that dead place, wondering how to get out. It takes time. You can't learn it all in one night. I'm still learning. All these credentials, he went to school for that. He has been qualified for this. He has proven this, not only with himself and his family, but within the company. Now we have to prove to ourselves. I thank all of you for joining us, those who joined us at the church that's watching us on our page. Thank God for you. Thank God for all of you all. Listen, we're going to make sure we have the information for him. Visit him during business hours. After he's off, he has family time. He ain't quite like the preacher. Y'all know y'all call us late at night. Reverend Clark, you got to get out your bed. What's the hours, Brick? What's your office hours? On Saturday. But let me tell you something. If he's not there, he does have qualified people. Even though it's business, I think with me in the church, we have a great relationship with him and a couple of his right-hand people that work with him. I can call them. I remember when Benet had an accident in Tuscaloosa. She was in school. I didn't call the office. I called Brick. That was a preacher, y'all. That's how y'all see. And he made things happen. That meant a lot. When I have certain situations going on, he may be insurance like, Brick, this ain't going to fly. He makes it happen. Why? Because we build that rapport. He's the expert. Always find yourself, no matter where you go in business, there are many clients, but with those clients, you have to be real with each other. I can tell you firsthand, he's real. He's in business. That's what he does. But he's also in business to be a blessing to you. He has a relationship. He's from Mississippi. I'm not going to hold it against him. But he lives in Alabama. And he's been a blessing ever since I met him. And I tell you, I don't really see myself going nowhere other than right there at Chase Way. What is it called exactly? Yeah, Chase Curve, right there. It's right across from the McDonald's, Chantilly, Middle Lane exit. I get the address. What's the address? 9100 East Chase Parkway. And if he's there, you'll see that Chevrolet truck with his picture on the side of it. I want to get a church shirt like that with True Word of Life with my picture on the side. Can I do that, y'all? I'm gonna have Zim on that side with his, with his dancing, But listen, it's been a wonderful evening. Talk to him. Now leave here thinking, leave here empowered. Also challenge the ones you love to learn more. I'm a preacher. I'm a priest. But if I'm not helping the natural man, I'm doing God an injustice. Because an unsaved person still need to know how to live. Maybe if I teach them about finance, maybe they come and say, I want to find Jesus. Paul said, well, my priestly role wouldn't get me in. My occupation of being a tent maker got me into. So there's a very difference. So I thank God so much for all of you being here tonight. And may these other weeks be full of learning. And I thank God. Any other questions? You ready to dance us out? Charles? We got insurance if you fall now. Listen, y'all stand, we're gone. Make sure y'all greet him and let him know all the things you learned. Don't hold him. He has a family to go to. You have some questions. Again, make an appointment. Call the office, and I'm quite sure they will make an appointment with you all.